Okay, and we are live. Welcome to useR 2020 R Forwards Breakout session, supporting diversity in the art community. Today will be chaired by Shalmith Karaoke and myself. And we have an amazing lineup of panelists, Shanyna Bellini Saibene, Lais Carvalho, Richard Gamita, Danielle Small, Robin Williams, and Greg Wilson. Thank you, our Forwards organizers, for creating this breakout session and making it happen. Damiano Cherasuolo, Jonathan Godfrey, Liz Haar, Tatiana Kekovicik, Imke Meya, Kevin O'Brien, Noah Tamir, and last but certainly not least, Heather Turner. Our tech support for this session are Milan Kabuku and Susanne Daund. So what happens next? We are going to be discussing for the first half hour, where panelists will present their experiences in the art and other tech communities as members of that are under or overrepresented in the community. And then we will open the floor for questions. You can type your questions in the YouTube where you're watching this on the red rectangle that is showing on the right bottom. So please type your questions while all of this is happening, and Shell will cover them in the second half. And without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen and passing the virtual mic to Shanyna. Shanyna, please take it away.
Hi, my name is Shanyna, and I live with my husband and my two beautiful children in Santa Rosa, La Pampa, Argentina, in South America. I am a scientist. I am the first generation in my family to complete high school. I went to a scholarship at my job. We allowed me to finish my undergrad degree in information systems and a master's degree in data mining. I had to work from an early age. I started teaching programming when I was 15. I never stopped. I love teaching because education is one of the few tools that people like I, in countries like mine, have to improve our life, especially because it is essential to narrow the structural inequality in our society. This is why during the pandemic, I co-founded Metadocencia, an organization to expand good teaching practices to Spanish-speaking teachers. It is also one of the reasons that I love community of practice such as Our Ladies. I became part of their community 3 years ago when I started the Our Ladies Santa Rosa chapter. Now I am part of the Our Ladies Global team. I'm co-founder and co-chair of the Latin Art. I'm part of the team that translates art materials into Spanish. I want to thank our forwards for inviting me to be part to this panel. I've dedicated over 20 hours per week to their community in the last 3 years, and this is the first time I'm participating in one of the largest art conferences. I hope it will be the first of many. My experience in the art community has been very positive. However, I think that the community must work harder to some points to improve diversity. Our Ladies was the first community that made me feel welcome. Before that, I tried with other tech community where I have very different experience. I was rejected because I didn't speak English. I'm a woman, I don't have a PhD, I don't have many followers on Twitter, I live too far away, and it's such a small town that many Argentinians may show that the place really doesn't exist. Being far away of large cities means that I can access conference, trainings, and other activities. But when an ally listens to the voices that represent people like me, opportunities such as becoming an art studio certified instructor can happen, which in turn allow me to help others URMs succeed in getting that certification. Criteria to access any type of perk in our community must be carefully crafted, including minority feedbacks to make sure we are not excluding, discouraging, or leaving valuable people out. Let me be clear, I'm not meaning that URM should do diversity and inclusion consulting for free. But if you will ask someone, you have to ask us. Some people say nothing for us without us, and I agree with that. This is the second time I dare to speak in public in English. What I'm saying in a few minutes took many hours trying to write my personal thoughts in foreign words. Besides, I need to practice the pronunciation so you can understand my beautiful accent. My workload for achieve the same is several times higher than for a native English speaker. I do not only have to be able to afford to learn another language, I also must learn all accepted international courtesy rules, the humor, how to read between the line and silence. I have to write in two languages because if not in Spanish, most people from my region can use it. But if not in English, it doesn't exist. Language, education, access, and location are good examples that not all of us start to participate from the same place and with the same tools in their community. In my opinion, if we strive for equity, we must work harder to eliminate these barriers, and people with the disadvantages shouldn't be the ones doing all the hard work. For many of us, their community is a very important resource. Being involved at the international level allow us to transfer information and opportunity to our region faster. It also gives us the chance to network with peers and stakeholders. All of this help us improve our local reality. But since there are not enough people that represent minority from the global south in teams where decisions are made, it is very challenging to open us a space for conversation where we can discuss complex situations to increase inclusion in a safe way. Currently, the risk of disagreements feel really high. This is why many people from minority don't speak up or decide to start aside and focus on local change rather than speak up to end bigger structural bias. But if we don't get involved, we always be excluded for the international picture. In order to change this, minority group must be part of the decision-making tables where the future of art is decided. We need a much better balance of power. Also, work division inside the community must be evenly distributed. In transparent way, a more public recognition should be given to all of those who work behind the scene, enable art to progress. In my opinion, this is how we are really going to embrace inclusion and diversity in the art community. Thank you.
Thank you, Janina. Thank you very much for your words. Lais, could you please?
Yes. So hello, everyone. My name is Lais Carvalho. I am part of the Python community. So I believe I'm the only one in this panel today that is not actively contributing to such an amazing community as R is, for, especially for minorities. So a little bit about me. So I started my Python journey when I was in engineering. I fell in love with Python just because of the graphs capabilities. So I did a little bit of engineering beforehand. I am now on my third year of IT, so I'm still not a graduate. I'm still a newbie on the super new in the whole area and sector. Um, and today I would like to share with you a few of my thoughts comparing then the Python community and the R community when we talk about diversity, especially gender diversity and inclusion of minorities in general. Um, the main difference between the Python community and the R community is what the people there in what they usually do with the programming languages. So um, R is used a lot for social science and earth sciences. Those are fields that have many women already in. So that contributes already for the disparity on amount of a woman using the R programming language and the Python programming language, which I think R has at least double the amount of female presence um, in it. And Python is more used for data science, for the data science field, and the presence of females in the data science field goes from between 15 and 25%. So it's quite small. I believe that the number of females working with earth sciences and social sciences using R is around 6 times higher. So that's already a big difference. Um, And well, the female presence in the Python community is not that high. We have a few C Python developers, and we actually had a discussion on our Slack group, the useR Slack group, prior to this panel, where Carl Willing, one of the C Python developers, was actually talking about this, and how difficult it was in the beginning for them to be part of the community, to actually be included in the group. How things got better now after a few things changed, but there's still a big path to go, and we still have a lot of work to do. And well, I hope I can learn a lot with you today, listening to such a great panel. And well, I hope I can contribute as well. Thank you.
Thank you a lot, Lais, and welcome from the Python side. Richard, please, before giving you the mic, Richard, there's been a small problem. Technically, the link we announced on Twitter for this YouTube was wrong, and you'll find the right link to the YouTube in the bad YouTube chat. So hopefully that makes any sense. Otherwise, go to Twitter. User Munich already tweet about it. Thank you, the people that are behind us. And Richard, please. Sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Laura. Hi, everyone. My name is Richard, and I'm based out of Washington, D.C. here. I work in the threat intel community here in DC. I'm originally from Uganda, and back in 2015, I founded Kampala ARA, one of the first ARA communities. And I'm a very strong user of ARA. I've been around for over 10 years. A number of things that I've noticed around marginalized communities, and this includes also the women and minorities in tech who are still strongly underrepresented. Diversity is something that the world has been talking about for decades, and you will see at panels. At several panels and conferences, whether it's books being written or podcasts that are dedicated to the topic. But if you look at the numbers, are very discouraging. And I've been around the tech community for a while to say this. Now, I always want to start off with a number of positives. And for me, this is what attracted me to the ARA community. And I still find super exciting and has guided me along. Then later on, maybe I'll share a number of the challenges that I've also seen. One of the interesting things that attracted me to the ARA community, and this also came later on, is just having the likes of professional organizations that can lift some of the underrepresented communities. An example is the ARA Fords. With some of the work that they've done in supporting, whether it's the Africa ARA or, some of the other, ARA user groups for women and the others. And if you look at the trend that they followed, is almost very similar to what other organizations that have tried, to make a mark in this area have done, whether it's, Akira Chicks in Nairobi or, girls who code, or black girls who code, or the likes of Anita Borg and the others. So for me, that was very interesting and very important for me to know that this is a community that really cares for even, us, the underrepresented people. Another interesting thing was if you attend any of the conferences, and for me, I found this very interesting, is the fact that in tech conferences, that having a number of underrepresented people really makes change. You really make some real impact, and it goes beyond the content itself. And having the likes of useR, which has been consistent across the years, I've been following very diligently. It has really helped me understand, with the different angles of the community and what they're thinking about and how I can contribute. And I found that that's super exciting. There are also other areas like, if you look at certifications that the likes of, let's say, whether it's, different organizations that are running in training, you will find that the community is very welcoming, and including even some of the regions that are super underrepresented, and this makes you feel very inclusive in some of the ideas that they're coming up with. A number of challenges that I've noticed along the way. First and foremost, if you look at even the tech community itself, it's been overwhelmingly, just white, and the majority of, the communities that you'll go into is mostly white only. And it's very nice to see, us having such discussions uh, of, whether it's underrepresented in any way, and, just making us feel included in, making, the discussions around the future of some of these communities and the platforms that we use uh, across. A number of people I've discussed with, even on whether it's conferences and everything, may think that, having diversity could be maybe lowering the bar, and this is a very wrong conception actually, because if you notice, several of the ideas that come when you have a diverse community is amazing. I'll give an example. I recently sat in a meeting here with top executives who are still calling Democratic Republic of Congo Zaire, and you'll be very surprised of how very uninformed these people are. And I came out and shared some of the ideas, and without having me in such a room, they were going to make huge mistakes that could actually have repercussions on some of the companies that we are working on. And for me, that's some of the real nitty-gritty, pointers that I can bring up to say, you really need diverse people, whether it's, marginalized, whether it's women, have, Black community there, have LGBTQ community, and just try to have everyone around on the table if you want to have, any success in whatever you're doing. Uh, those are my 2 cents, and I mean, in the continuation of the discussion, definitely I would love to have more contributions around that. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your insights. And Danielle, please.
Hi, everyone. So first, I just want to thank R Forwards and Africa R user group just for creating this space and allowing us to come and speak on this important topic. Again, my name is Danielle Small Perkins. I'm a data scientist, and I've been using R for around 5 years or so. And I want to talk specifically today about the community that I co-founded with another R user, Doris Scott. So this community is called myR. My MIR, minorities that use R. And so the community aims to provide a space of belonging and support for our users that have come from or identify historically and systematically marginalized communities. One of the reasons why we wanted to start myR community is so that people would be able to see themselves in spaces that they may have not previously seen themselves. And I would say that the idea and like the desire for a community like this began a long time ago. Personally, I have been what you might call the only one in many spaces for really as long as I can remember, whether it was being the only Black woman in my program in statistics, in school, in my classes, or being the only Black woman on my team. And sometimes actually within a company at large, it was hard to be able to see myself in other positions or even see myself as someone that belongs in that space. And so I met with Doris Scott, who's also a data scientist, on Twitter, where many great relationships begin. And then we're fortunate enough to meet each other in person at our studio comps, which we both received diversity scholarships from our studio, which is a great program. And I imagine that the applications for those scholarships will be coming out soon. But we likely would have not actually met each other without that scholarship. And so meeting each other in person, being able to see each other and talk about our experiences working in a similar space was really important for us and somewhat solidified the idea and need for a community such as myR. And so I would say that we are, in terms of the art ecosystem and all of these other wonderful groups that are advocating for and supporting diversity and inclusion, we're fairly new, but we're growing. We just, I think last time I checked, it was around a little bit over 100 members and allies within the group, within the community. Members are our users that I have, again, identify with these or coming from backgrounds within these marginalized groups. And then allies are those that have promised to use their privilege and their resources to uplift the voices of members and support the members and excuse me, encourage diversity and equity at large. One of the, I guess maybe a few of the ways that we are encouraging not only the space of belonging, but then also making sure that community members are connected to these different opportunities that they may have not seen before or known about or felt comfortable in either applying or just generally having access to, is we have a job board where members and allies can post jobs and opportunities for growth in certain areas. We also have one of the really important, I would say one of the really important desires for us is to make sure to amplify voices of those coming from diverse backgrounds and the work that they do. So not only focusing on them as, the diversity person but making sure that their efforts and their work is highlighted. And so part of that is also creating community highlights. We have a program now where we're collecting stories about the different work that the members and allies are representing. And then along with that, being able to establish some sort of guide and way to look for experts and professionals working in these specific fields. We also offer our help within the community, just again connecting others working on similar problems to get our related help, and then also putting webinars on. So to kind of go back to my earlier point about making sure to highlight the work that members are doing, we have started a summer series that is kind of blood over into the fall, which is great. There have been a lot of requests and desire to put on different webinars, but one of them, for example, our first one actually, for example, included 2 of the panelists here, and then also one of the moderators, Shell Garganina, and they spoke about their experience and also the process of becoming an R Studio certified trainer, which for our community members, some of them weren't even aware of the process. And again, it's being able to have these opportunities made apparent to community members, and also showing them and showing them how they can be involved. And then most recently, actually, we had a webinar given by Shell on ggplot. Was an excellent webinar, and we received a lot of just incredible feedback, and yeah, we were just really thankful to have the amount of support and desire to continue to highlight the work and the voices of community members. Excuse me.
Thank you very much, Danielle. And Robin, please.
Hello. Thank you for the invitation to talk. I'm Robin Williams, based in Exeter in the southwest of the UK. I first used R in 2007 during my undergraduate studies, and I used it a lot during my PhD, which was in statistical weather forecasting, and I now work in industry for a consultancy where we produce statistical models for sporting events. I'm here today to represent the visually impaired community, blind and partially sighted people. I think we are hugely underrepresented, not just in the art community, but across professional life and university life. So I think certainly in the UK, the unemployment statistics are something like 70%. And then when you extrapolate that down to the sciences, I don't know any other visually impaired people in the UK who are users. I'm sure there are some, but I would be surprised if there were more than 5 or so. With that said, there are a small but growing group of users. around the world, at least I hope it's growing. These come from a variety of backgrounds, a complete cross-section. So we have students, graduates, lecturers, consultants such as myself, and statisticians across a range of fields, which is encouraging, and we need to see that continue to grow. And I want to talk perhaps in slightly more practical terms about R and the R ecosystem itself compared to the other panelists, because the main barrier for the visually impaired community is in the accessibility of producing materials and interacting with R. So from the people that I know who I've met online, there are a range of different workflows. So myself, I'm a big user of Emacs Speak Statistics, which is a kind of wrapper to the R terminal from within Emacs. I know lots of other people use the console, and there is a growing use of R Markdown, which I'll touch on more in a second. There have also been recently some very positive developments from RStudio, which until recently has been completely inaccessible. But thanks to Gary Ritchie, who's heading up an accessibility push at RStudio, and Juyang Seo, who's interning there over the summer, there have been some really quite large and significant improvements in the accessibility of the RStudio product. And I know they still have a lot of work to do, but they're keen to do that. So that's very encouraging, because I think really what you want as a blind user of R is to have options about your workflow. So in my place of work, the majority of my colleagues are users of RStudio, and sometimes it can be a little frustrating to have to use a different setup and system. It makes collaboration harder at times. So the more options we have available to us, the better. There are a couple of really cool packages out there. Particular mention to Jonathan Godfrey, who is part of the Forwards team, for all his work on the accessibility of R over the years. His Braille R package is a really outstanding piece of work, and goes a long way to breaking down some of the accessibility barriers of graphical content. So it cleverly employs R Markdown in the background to produce HTML output from standard graphical content such as histograms, XY scatter plots, which can make interacting with these tools a lot easier, and I imagine would be particularly beneficial for novice R user. I certainly wish I'd had it at my disposal when I started off in 2007. The other package that I'm aware of that's out there is the Sonify package, which was an idea of a colleague of mine, Stefan Ziegert, and I helped in the development and provided ideas as well. So this is a package that is able to convert plots such as Loess fits into audible content, and it's something that I use regularly, very regularly, most days in my place of work. We would, I'll wrap up, but we would really like developers to consider accessibility when they're designing their packages, and there is an active email list. If you search for the Blind R Users group, people on there would be very happy to hear your ideas and to provide feedback on anything you may develop.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you very much. We might need a list of those packages. We are having people, I mean, your audio came and back and forth. So maybe we will, it's no worries, but there are people asking for the name of the packages that you mentioned. So we will be adding those to a HackMD file that we will be sharing, Shell will be sharing. So, Greg, please, could you please take it away?
Thank you very much. So it's difficult for me to know where to start. So the best place is probably to say that for the better part of 2 decades, I was part of the problem rather than part of the solution. My younger self would have said that nothing that happens before the job interview should be taken into account, that everything that happens outside the company isn't the company's business. And it took a long time and a lot of work for me to realize that when we say that women or people of color or people with physical disabilities have been discriminated against, what we mean is that people like me have been discriminated in favor of. That every time somebody is shut out, that place goes to somebody who probably looks like me. I'm a middle-aged, straight white guy. I'm physically able, economically secure, English as a first language, living in an affluent country. If you want to play privilege bingo, I just tick off all the boxes when I sit down, right? So people like me have to decide whether they're going to acknowledge that and do something about it or not. And if you look at Silicon Valley, the answer for many people is nope. But for the rest of us, I think we have an obligation to go and find out what we can do. And one of the places, I'm going to share a few links that I hope will get copied into the HackMD file. Valerie Aurora, who helped draft the code of conduct that is now used by a lot of open source organizations and conferences, runs some awesome training out of a company called Frameshift Consulting, where she talks about how to be an ally, not why you should be an ally, but how do you actually do that? It's all scenario-based training. You can find her keynote from CarpentryCon 2 years ago, many other videos online of her talking about this. It turns out that that kind of training is probably the most effective thing we can do right now. There was an article just a couple of months ago by Alexander Kalev and Frank Dobbin in Harvard Business Review, reviewing the research that tells us that a lot of the diversity and inclusivity training being done by American companies is having no effect or making things worse. Because the people who already get it don't need the training, and the people who are the problem resent the training and then act it out by becoming bullies. What does work? Training bystanders to be allies, training them when and how to intervene. Not just why, but how, so that they know what steps to take when they see something happening. And I strongly recommend this article, but on top of that, it's just one example of the fact that other people have devoted their lives to studying this. And I think that as data scientists who are telling the world to pay attention to data, we have an obligation to pay attention to the data ourselves. If the data says that discrimination occurs, we should adjust our behavior accordingly. If it says that this technique is an effective way to address it, we should adjust our behavior accordingly. Organizations like useR and Metadoscencia exist so that people don't have to teach themselves how to program or how to teach. It turns out we don't have to teach ourselves how to fix these larger social issues either. Other people have figured out how to do it. We have to implement. Other things that I have found particularly helpful here, there's a pair of books by Manson Rising called Fearless Change. These are catalogs of patterns. How do you get large organizations to change? Nothing in these books will surprise you, but that's not the same as saying that you would have thought of it yourself. They have spent decades going through and figuring out, how do you figure out if your idea has any chance of winning? How do you get your first few supporters? How do you get a larger audience? How do you get higher management to buy in, even if that means that they then take credit for something that you did? What do you do about the people who are just never going to change their minds? Again, some of this feels as simple as telling people to use good variable names, but anybody who's taught knows that you actually have to teach that, right? Another one that I would recommend is from my favorite user interface designer, Jeff Johnson. He and his colleagues have co-authored a book called Designing User Interfaces for an Aging Population. And if you scrape it a little bit, the point of this is that all of the things we should have been doing all along to support people with physical or cognitive challenges we now have to do because the people using the internet are hitting their 60s and 70s. And if we don't support them, that's a large part of our user base that we're not helping. I'm 57 years old. I don't see as well as I used to. I find it difficult to sit in a chair for more than an hour to stretch because I've got a bad back. If I was a car, you'd be looking at getting a new car, right? So it's time for us to start paying attention to all of these things to help everybody. And that was me hearing the bell, so I stopped talking.
Thank you so much, Greg. It's time for our Q&A session, but before we get into that, we would like to notify all of you that there is a HackMD file that we are sharing, and that file contains a list of, a list of communities and organizations that are making work towards achieving a diverse R community possible. So please have a look at the list and just see the different communities. Those are some of the communities that we are aware of. So if there's any that we've left out, please feel free to add onto the list. Now we'll go directly to the first question. Give me a minute. So during the useR 2020 first panel with the ARCO team, we had a question about how ARCO was planning to increase diversity. Maybe for all the panelists that are representing groups in the community, if you could have only one wish granted, what would you ask to change in the R community you represent here today? And what would you want us to include in the global R community? Anyone can, please feel free to answer.
Yep, sure. Let me go first, if you don't mind. If I would say two responses to that. One is one thing I've noticed over the years, and at least I've been around for more than 10 years, is professional organizations can lift you or the the marginalized or the minority communities when the industry doesn't. And that's something I've noticed with R. I would really encourage, the ARA core community to, have more support and push more efforts around the ARA forwards and any of the other organizations like, the user meetups for women and, any other underrepresented communities. That's a super, super important thing, because waiting for the conferences, to show concern is not really helpful. Something we've seen, whether it's with the other tech communities, and it has failed over time. The other thing that I would talk about is, speaking at tech conferences makes a huge real impact on people and goes beyond the content, as I mentioned earlier. And giving opportunities to some of, the underrepresented communities. And as you support them through some of these professional organizations towards these conferences will really help them, bring out the confidence and also reach out to other of their communities, back where they come from. Last but not least, we need to now take this to the next level. There are several languages that are in these, places. I'm speaking specifically about Sub-Saharan Africa, whether it's Amharic, Kiswahili, isiZulu. Let's take it to the next level. Let's translate some of, the content into these languages so that we can reach the grassroots of some of these people and work with them. Come up with certifications where we can take to the high schools and the universities. Now take it to the next level and see how we can support and bring on all the masses. Yeah, I think those are my 2 cents around that.
Okay, anyone else?
I have one. Oh, sorry, Lace. You can go.
No, it's fine. You go. I'm eager to hear you as well. Go.
Okay. Okay, very quickly. I think if I were to quickly think of an ask, specifically for our core, for those that are in leadership positions, on board positions, as they have or has expressed the desire to create these diverse and equitable spaces, reach out to groups like Our Ladies, of course, our forwards, VIAR, of course, and offer to sponsor members of these groups to be in these positions where they're making, or they're having these decision-making abilities, whatever it takes to become or to be able to sit on these board positions or these leadership positions, not only mentoring, but creating a space and some type of program and some type of engagement with these communities and their members, so that whenever the cycles change, there is a person from these communities equipped and ready to step into that role.
Okay, Lice, you wanted to?
Well, she said everything already. But what I wanted to say was that I think that the best way we could guarantee that we have a little bit more diversity in whichever programming language it is just making sure that we support the people that are already there. If we give them enough support and then we show them that this is a safe space and that they're able to come in, to make mistakes, to mess up everything, to cry, to be human, to learn, and then go home and tell everyone that they found this most amazing group that is extremely supportive and that they think it's going to change their lives, then we've done our job right. Then we've accomplished to actually engage and bring more people, bring a more diverse society into tech, because it's necessary, especially when we're talking about data science and machine learning and how biased all the algorithms can be if you only have one portion of society actually programming them. But yeah, that was it.
Okay.
Can I say something? So I hope you can hear me. From an accessibility point of view, it would be nice if accessibility was closer to the center of our development, rather than as it stands at the moment, where we quite often have to take what's produced and then work to make it accessible. It would be nice if more things were accessible out of the box, and that would certainly save a lot of time and expenditure of energy. And I know people would be happy to work with members of the R4 team in order to achieve that.
Okay. I think Ngamita mentioned something about translation of materials to other languages, and that's a question that has been asked. For people whose first language is not English, is there a way to have the documentation of our packages translated in other languages? Is it even technically feasible?
It is technically feasible, but the experiences of organizations like Mozilla is that it's a lot more work than you think, even if you think it's a lot of work. Tracking the changes and keeping things up to date as the documentation evolves is the sort of thing that you might rely on volunteer communities, but it quickly becomes hard work, and it feels unfair to ask somebody who's in a small language group to do the extra work unpaid. So the answer there, I think, is to institute rules where you can't release the package. It would be great if you couldn't get a package on CRAN until your docs were in at least 2 languages. You pick which 2. There's a simple rule change that would push things in the right direction. Right? And that's the sort of thing where getting yourselves on the boards that have the votes that make those decisions is a slow and tedious process, but absolutely essential.
Thank you, Greg. Yes, I agree with all that you folks are saying. I have to watch this again after it's done. But now, Shanyna, a question for you that I haven't heard you answer anything, and I really would like everyone to speak in the questions. We have a question on the chat saying, in these days of virtual conferences, do you have any suggestions of alternatives to diversity scholarships for conferences via their sponsors to support contributions to underrepresented groups?
Are you going to help me with the English, Laura? Can I
Absolutely.
say in Spanish and you translate for me, please?
Yeah.
Ok. Creo que primero son cuestiones de accesibilidad que nos pueden ayudar a todos.
I think that these are questions of accessibility that can help us all.
Si hay subtítulos, yo que no soy buena en inglés, puedo llegar a leerlos.
If there are subtitles, that I'm not very good in English, I can read them.
Y puedo ayudar a alguien que no escucha.
And those can help people that cannot hear well.
Y pensar en estas cosas desde el inicio, no al final.
And think about all these things from the beginning and not as an afterthought.
Y tomarlo como parte del trabajo que tenemos que hacer, no como que es más trabajo y más complicado. Tenemos que hacerlo.
And take it as the work that everyone must do, not that just has to be done, but everyone must do this work.
Creo que si el dinero se pone en aplicaciones, software que nos ayuden a pensar en todos y que lo haga más inclusivo, más gente lo va a poder aprovechar.
I think if the monies go to be put into things that can help to include us all, it will be the greatest investment. So to include everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This is why it's important to have more than one minority group that speak more than one language, right? Thank you, Shanyna. That was great. I hope I was faithful to your words.
Thank you, Shanyna and Laura. That was amazing. During the useR events, we normally have individuals who are given diversity scholarships. So they are able to attend. The diversity scholarships are given to people who are not able to pay to travel or attend the conferences for themselves. But in these days of virtual conferences, people are not traveling. Do you have any suggestions of alternatives to diversity scholarships for conferences via their sponsors to support contributors from underrepresented groups? Like, what can we do to offer diversity scholarships where people are not traveling? Especially given that next year, useR 2021, for those who don't know, it's going to be virtual. So what can we do?
Well, I think, I don't really know what we can do in general, but I can tell you that for PyCon, I think it was PyCon US, Tanya Allard decided to do mentored sprints for the actual conference. So we had the sprints day that used to be hosted locally there. We moved everything to the Discord platform. They got a few video channels as well. And there were forms for people to fill in beforehand in a website describing if there were minority sprints, there were mentored minority sprints. So if you identified yourself as a minority, you just put your name there and then tell which kind of minority you are. And then the people that are minority would be pre-selected from the pool of everyone that wanted to be part of the mentored sprint. And I thought that was quite an interesting way of including more people and bringing them into the channel and actually having a chat with them, because not everyone is comfortable with contributing with open source, especially if you think about minority. So I thought that would be, I mean, it's one way.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts?
One non-programming group that I'm involved in this fall for its conference is paying for bandwidth and childcare, because that allows people to actually take part. And, you know, I think that things like that will make it more accessible in reality for a large number of participants. The interesting thing for me is whether that will be kept if and when people start traveling together again. Somebody's going to be away from home for 4 or 5 days. they have some difficult decisions to make if they're caring for an elderly relative. If part of the inclusivity is making sure you can actually get there, all right, I think that's a good way to spend money.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? Yes, Shanyna?
You can also think in offer tutorials or material in different language. We can have tutorial in Spanish. We have very good people that can teach. And maybe some of the keynotes can have a translation. So more people can understand. I don't dare speak English 3 years ago, you know. Our community helped me to try and to speak today. But the language could be a really high barrier. I suffer a lot. So that is why I go over that point so many times. I'm also this, I know that all is virtual now and go streaming everything, but don't stop after the pandemic because I live really far away in a really small place. It's really hard for me to travel. So if you can continue streaming this, I can access. I can give the kids to my husband for a little hours and watch and participate. So I think that is also a good way to spend that money and include us.
Thank you, Janina. And if we don't have, we lost Richard, unfortunately. Seems like his connection failed him. That happens. So if not further thoughts on this, I see no hands or no unmuting. So go to the next question. Well, we are having a number of questions. I'm picking like at random, and this picked my attention because
I have one I could ask.
Yeah, Liz, please.
I'd like to ask Danielle. My name is Liz. I'm on R Forwards, and I came to it because I'm blind and wanted to work on accessibility. And I'm white, and I'm really excited about your group also. And I'm wondering what I can do to help with that, and particularly to help the people who have both marginalizations, like maybe people who are disabled and Black. You know, what can I contribute to helping with that?
Sure. Well, first of all, hi, nice to meet you, Liz. I would say, and also just thank you for your expressed desire to, want to directly contribute. I would say joining, joining my community as an ally to using, like, if there are specific, so let me back up. In addition to historically and like systemically marginalized communities, we also represent our users that are beginners. And so I would say that using your resources with our forwards to either advocate or support growth there would be very helpful. If you have specific connections that you believe that would be useful, that would absolutely be useful. But I think joining as an ally would be incredibly useful. So I did drop, I think the link, I dropped the link earlier in the chat for MyR registration. I'll drop it again. I know we've kind of had a lot of links, but I'm hoping that that link will be shared and that more people will be encouraged to join.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Robin, what are the 3 main barriers that keep people with sensory disabilities from participating in the R community?
3 main barriers. So I think it's a very complicated question, but lots of it comes from people's experience when they are when they're noises. So, I mean, first of all, we have the problem that not many people go to university to study the sciences. So that would be the kind of main barrier, is participation in itself, which I guess is beyond the scope of the R community potentially. But I think then knowing how to get started. So for me, it was a very steep learning curve. And it took me a long time to get to any kind of proficiency. And now it would be interacting, for where I am in my kind of R journey now, it would be interacting with graphical content is the biggest barrier that I face on a daily basis. So anything that can be done to make graphical content more accessible is a great thing. And the Sonify package and Jonathan's Braille R package go away towards that. But there are all sorts of graphical packages out there now, most of which are just, I don't go near them because it creates more heartache than it's worth. So yeah, those would be my three.
Okay, thank you. Liz, will you have anything else to add?
I learned a lot in my kind of research about hoping to make this whole conference more accessible when it was going to be in person. And one of the things that really struck me was the ways that we include people who are deaf or hard of hearing. That there is actually a there are some people who feel that they could only participate if there was sign language interpretation available, that captions wouldn't be enough. So you know, I had recommended that since it was going to be in the United States, that we do provide ASL, because everybody across North America, not everybody, in the United States and most of Canada uses American Sign Language. And since the conference was going to be here, I thought that would be a way to reach people who would never otherwise have the opportunity to participate. I realize that sign language is really complex because each country has its own, and I'm not sure how you would handle it in Europe or something like that. But I found it really interesting that sign language was a really important component of accessibility to some people.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at my clock, and unfortunately we are out of time. I don't know where the time has gone, but we had a few things to say before we ended this. Just a reminder of the link, the HackMD file link that we've posted on the chat. It's a list of some of the communities that are doing amazing things to just promote diversity and inclusion in the R community. So please have a look at that. Right now, I will want to share my slides. So okay, just a minute. Please confirm you can see my slide. At least something on my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. So we are very grateful for everyone who attended this session. Again, we totally apologize for the small technical glitch at the beginning of this session. We are mostly thankful to our panelists for finding time to talk about diversity and inclusion with us today. We would also want to thank our tech support, Milenka and Suzanne. They are the they're the people behind the screens. Those people, we are just the faces. There are people who are working behind the screens to make sure that this session went well. We are also grateful to our forwards for organizing this amazing breakout session. A big thanks to the useR team organizers for organizing this breakout, like giving us a chance to have this breakout session. And of course, to the sponsors for sponsoring the event this year. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So being in our user groups has made some of us thrive in this community, rather, as in example, when I was starting, I didn't know a lot of these communities, but I've learned a lot. So if you're willing to be part of an user community, or better still, if you want to start your own R community it can be in your community space or in your city or even in your campus or village, please feel free to reach out to any of these communities listed or, on the HackMD file. And also depending on your geographical location, and someone will definitely get in touch with you. We have two more things before we end this session. The first one, there's a survey that we would want you people to attend. If this is the last session you're planning to attend this July, please answer the survey. The survey is run by our forwards, and which is the R Foundation Task Force for Women and Underrepresented Groups. It asks you a few questions about yourself, your involvement in useR, and what you thought about it. And the information you'll give us will be very critical when we are planning for the next useR conference, which again will be virtual. So if there's anything you didn't like, if there's anything you totally love, please share feedback with us. We are happy to take any kind of feedback. And you can scan that code as you can see on the screen, or you can just go directly to that link, bit.ly useR 2020 survey. The second thing is that, again, this is not the end of the useR 2020 event. We have a lot of tutorials that will be running through July, some in August and some in September. And we will really appreciate if you took time to go over to the useR 2020 website for more details on this. So I think one of the tutorials has already happened, but you can check out some that will be happening soon. All this information is being tweeted by useR 2020 MUC and useR 2020 STL. Yeah, so I think that's it from us. We are again totally grateful and thank you so much. Please, if I believe there are people somewhere who would want to be part of our community. So especially if you're in Africa, please reach out to us. If you're in Latin America, reach out to Shanyna and Laura. If you want to join Minority R, reach out to Danielle. People are very responsive on Twitter. And that's it from me. It's exactly 6:33 in Nairobi. So for people who are within our region, have a nice evening. For others who are in a different time zone, have a good day. But thank you so much for attending. We'll keep in touch. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks all.